Here's a quick look into today's episode.
During that time, when we got to around the company live fire stage, I got to meet Colonel Teddy Kleisner. I knew that guy was legit when he wasn't even in command yet, and he showed up to walk the lanes right in the back of the strikers for company live fires. You're taking time to be out here at YTC. He really made me just want to be so much better. He had been a company commander in that unit, so he knew the unit history. That's why for forever, I will always love 123 and the 23rd Infantry because of Colonel Kleisner. He was the man. When we talk about, taking someone off the streets, 18-year-old, the Guard has this thing called the Ranger Team Leader Initiative. Go to basic, AIT, it's for 11 Bravos and 11 Charlies right now, and then they send them to pre-Ranger, and then they go to Ranger School. You took a new kid, you sent him to training, he stayed down there, and he's coming back with a tab. And when I was out at Sandhurst last week, I got to meet one of the applicants who did that, and now he's a cadet up at West Point. And some of these guys stay down there. They get air assault, airborne, and rappel master. Man, you're coming back to in the Guard with all that, and they're extremely motivated. It doesn't matter what your component is, if you're National Guard, Reserve, or active duty. Always be selling. You put on that uniform, or even if when you take it off, you're a representation of the military. We know how much the Army changes lives. I mean, I see it every day, especially here in recruiting. I would say it really started for me in October of last year when I went down to Fort Knox and I met some of the brand new second lieutenants. And I would say prior to that, I was very cynical about the younger generation of officers. I was. And, it was completely based on just things in my head. I had to improve. The Army, as far as when it comes to new officers, I think we're in great hands with this next generation. Realize what's important in life. I'm going to be appreciative of my boys in my life. And I tell that to cadets, you should still want to go to Ranger School. Of course you should want to get your EIB. Go to all the schools. That's just going to make you better. But just realize nothing like that is ever going to give you true happiness. It's going to be the people around you and what you did for someone else.
Welcome to another episode of Teach Me to Fish, where our purpose is to help leaders better understand what drives people. In today's world, the core of recruiting and retaining talent revolves around leadership. And not just average leadership, but motivated, values-based, inspirational leadership. Our purpose is to get a little bit better every day. Progress equals small victories and stacking habits. Habits like getting up early, working your butt off, learning something new, being positive, and surrounding yourself with phenomenal people. I just got done doing a 90-minute LPD with the Wolfhounds here, battalion right next to my house from 25th about H2F and how to balance your life and all your health and fitness. And there was people from PFCs all the way to the battalion commander in that room. So boy, I had to use all my best skills of going back and forth from messages that would hopefully would resonate with the private first classes and specialists up to the all the way up to the majors and battalion commander. So I'm excited. What a good way to spend a Friday afternoon.
Yes, sir. Sounds great. It's funny. I had a couple of buddies who went to that battalion. And my one trip I did to Hawaii, we did a cruise, and my last day before we flew out, I met up with one of my buddies in that battalion, so I got to see that footprint, and they lived pretty close there. Yeah. So, yeah, I remember being in that area. So, good unit, great history too. Everyone who's been in that unit always talks about it.
Yeah,
so
there's units. It seems like every division has that one or two units that just got some history to them, that they got so much pride and. You get this, and it starts with the brand new private who shows up, and on day one, he starts learning the unit history and the pride. It becomes the culture that.
Yes, sir.
He showed me the Tyler Patterson showed me the headquarters and all the cups and the championships, and I mean they've won the cup every year. They say when are they not training for that cup? During Tropic Lightning Week, and so what a good atmosphere and a beautiful gym. That's where we did the talk. I'm so fired up, but more importantly, I'm fired up to have a conversation with you because our conversation the other day just sparked kind of so many ideas in my head, and the things that you've been doing recently with ROTC and with social media and the unit that you're with and the way you were telling me about AGR and recruiting command and everything. I feel man, our conversation can kind of go in so many different directions. But when I kind of look at the roadmap of our conversation, I kind of I see it's talking a little bit about why you joined, but your early years and what some of those early expectations were with the Army. And I think that everything about our conversation revolves around leadership. That it's kind
Yes,
of
sir.
what I hear you talking about. I hear you putting stuff out about leadership. And then your recent visit to Sandhurst, I can't wait to hear about that and, like how that went. And, just watching some of your videos on Instagram, like, the things that you got to experience, like it's easy to read between the lines, the stuff's funny, but like you can read between the lines that like, man, like the atmosphere that was going on out there was special. And I can't wait to, dig into that a little bit. And I want to learn a little bit more about AGR and the command that you're with now and recruiting and how what you're seeing out there firsthand. I think like your story is like that our future is bright.
And it's so funny. It's so funny saying that because I would say 2 years ago, I was kind of a cynic. I was worried. All my interactions with lieutenants and cadets over the last 2 years have just been great. So exactly, I'm picking up what you're putting down,
Yeah.
sir. Exactly, the future is
Yeah.
bright. So
And it's bright because there's so many positive leaders that are out there. There's so many positive soldiers that are coming in with all the hopes and dreams of what the Army's going to do for them, and the cadets that are out there are so fired up. And you and I have both seen it firsthand, and you've seen it firsthand this week. And I want to kind of hear about some of those things. But when you hear people say like John Howell, whether they say John Howell, they say, servant of leaders, Instagram, I get that. But but more importantly, when they say like John Howell, what do you hope people feel like when they hear your name?
sir, so I have to say, I'm 35 and 12 years in the Army, and I've never been asked this before, So great question to start a podcast with. And I started thinking about it, especially when I listened to Colonel Wayne's, because I had a feeling I was going to be asked this, and I came up with something in my mind. And what do? I check with my wife, like, hey, does this sound stupid? And she's like, that sounds great, John. Just make sure you don't overthink this. And, she's great. She keeps me humble. But sir, really, the thing I would say is if someone heard my name, John Howell, who was a man who was totally devoted to leading his family, taking care of them, and then obsessed and driven to take care of soldiers and their families. And even, I would say, stranger civilians, especially working in recruiting. And we'll get to it a little bit later on. But when I started this journey in the Army, I don't know if that second part was a big deal to me. It was something I kind of uncovered working with certain leaders and units. I would say I was pretty selfish as a MS4 cadet, as a brand new lieutenant, but it is my passion now. And as long as my family is taken care of, I have 3 boys, and shepherding them, leading them to be great Americans who love this country, appreciate people and treat everyone with dignity and respect. And then anyone who I am, that I'm in communication with, which with the social media piece, it can get pretty large. People not even in my units that I've served in, but helping them in any way I can, whether that's an admin thing, if it's just some life advice, things like that. I'm totally sold out for helping others, and it's been very rewarding doing that over the last, I wouldn't say 12 years, I'd say 11. Yeah. After the first year, that's when I would say it clicked for me when I became a platoon leader.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thanks for sharing that early on. I think that's kind of a spoiler alert into like some of the things that we're going to talk a lot about and kind of focus the conversation. But when you say those things, like it resonates with me, and you're like, why does that resonate instantly with me? Because like when you see somebody who's got the same passions as you, the same fire as you, the same things, you pick up on the little things that you can read in between the lines, right? You pick up on those things, and I think that's what gravitated me towards what you were doing and wanting to, one, learn a little bit about for myself, and then two, share it with some of the people. Why'd you join the Army in the first place? What pushed you in this direction?
So I come from a pretty large family, 6 kids. Mom and dad didn't own a TV. That's what we always say for the children in the Howell house. But it was a single income family as well. We were homeschooled. That was something my parents decided to do. So all 6 of us, sometimes I wonder why my mom was so stressed out when I was at home, and I think I know now, with 3 boys, and we're homeschooling as well. But it was a single income family, and with 6 children, we it was I don't know if it was explicitly told to us, but we knew, hey, the route to college, you basically have 3 options. You can enlist. They always encourage military service. There was the local community college in Tennessee. Tullahoma, Tennessee is where I grew up, not far from Lynchburg, Tennessee, which you probably know where that is. Everyone knows where that is. Good water there. And then the third option was to pursue ROTC, which my older brother, he had attended Mississippi State University. He was an ADA officer in the Guard. He switched to the reserves later. Um, but I'll say when I was getting close to finish high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I enjoyed playing sports, playing guitar, things like that, but I had no idea what I wanted to major in. Um, but I knew I wanted to go to college. It was an expectation we were all going to go to college, all 6 kids in that household. So I started looking into RTC programs. The There were several local ones, but I found a school out in Eastern Tennessee, not far from Knoxville, real small liberal arts Baptist school called Carson Newman University. No one's ever heard of it. It was about 2,000 students, and the program was about 60 cadets. But the cool thing about that program was they covered room and board, tuition, everything. It was a great scholarship opportunity. So I reached out to the RU there. And then my dad took me over to interview with the PMS, and I got a scholarship. I would say I think it was in April of
Mhm.
2009, so kind of late, locking in college plans. But I started there, so I was driven. I would say when I started as a cadet, it was this is how I'm going to pay for
Yeah.
college, and that's how I viewed it. Um, and it kind of turned into more later on, after I left school. But mainly it was to pay for school. And my parents had I mean, they were both great Americans. They'd always encouraged military service and giving back to this country. So I knew that was an aspect of it as
Hmm.
well. But it was mostly for my financial gain and for educational gain. Um, it's not something I'm very proud about
Yeah.
saying, because it's totally different now, why I serve. But that's mainly why I started and sought out an RTC scholarship,
Yeah.
sir.
I just got done when we was talking to Jason Wayne. One of the topics we talked about is that there's so much more to ROTC that's out there than just paying for school. And it's like I remember
Right.
when I was a major at ROTC, and I would go around as the Brigade S3, Brigade XO, and like talk to all the programs, and it was like we would always harp on there's so much more to Army than just paying for school. But I joined the Army to get the GI Bill, and that was it. Like I
Yes,
signed
sir.
up to get the GI Bill to figure out a little bit what I wanted to do with my life, and here I am still doing it, right? And so the people that
Right.
fall in love with it will get attracted to it and will stay. But the people that needed it for all those reasons, they also can do 3 to 5 years and get their degree and go out and serve in the military and be great citizens and be great advocates for us as well, right?
Yes, sir. And I working in recruiting the last 2.5 years, you see that all the time, right? We call them the first time obligors. They sign up, for 6 years. And I will say, for a kid coming out of high school, the health care, the educational benefits, that's something they joined for. And that's okay. They're still, they're signing that line to serve. And some of them stay and some of them leave. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm totally so I will always I will never force my children to join the army, but I would always be proud if they wanted to do that. It's just been an incredible journey for me in my life. I can't imagine my life without the army.
Yeah.
I can't. I have no idea what I would be doing right now if I didn't have the
Yeah.
army.
And with a son in the Army and a daughter at West Point, I can tell you when both of them told me, like when my son said I'm going to enlist, and when Ryan said I'm going to go to the West Point, neither was a question of I was happy because now I don't have to pay for their college. I was proud of them
Right.
because of their choice to serve, and I knew that my children were going to be taken care of because they were going to be a part of a team that was going to take care of them. And that was the biggest reason. I was like, I could afford to send my kids to college, or I could have helped them find a scholarship. But that wasn't even in the top five of why I was so proud of them for choosing to do it. How was your first your first unit? What was the early years look like? Or maybe not even the first unit. There was probably some things at Bolick and those first couple of years, in the Army that was kind of the foundation of maybe your military career.
Yes, sir. So I feel like it's important to cover this. So when it came to branching, I majored in physical education, so it's a BS degree, right?
Yeah.
Weightlifting, paddle sports, all that. That's great. But my GPA was good. I mean, I tried very hard as I would say an MS1, MS3, and towards the end of my MS3 year, my junior year, I got it into my mind that I wanted to branch either AG or MI straight up, go to Japan and party. That was my goal. I mean, I was not taking this serious. And this is 2012, the wars were still going on. I totally didn't care about that at all. So I put in my packet. This is back when you did it all analog, just
Yeah.
writing it in. And there was an option that said, hey, if we were to branch detail you, what would you want to be branch detailed? And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I don't know why I did this, but I was like, well, I know a little bit about squad tactics and platoon tactics, and I just checked infantry, thinking this will never happen. And the following semester, after I got back from camp, I'm completely checked out. I'm on coast mode, trying to enjoy my senior year. We go into this is back before they did like the big branch reveals. You just went in and talked to your professor of military science, and Colonel Gregory Stevens, who was an awesome PMS, spent a lot of time in the 82nd, Ranger qualified armor officer. He goes, John, you got Seaburn. And I was like, there's no way. I know you're kidding with me. And he goes, okay, yeah. MI, you got MI, but you're branch detailed infantry. And it was like the whole world zoomed in on me. And I was like, I really felt like that kid from Fury, who got assigned to the tank crew. Is like, this cannot be my life. Cannot be happening. This is the worst thing that could happen to me. And I've talked to a guy who runs the Center for Junior Officers, Major Ryan Crane. He said it well. He's like, you get 5 minutes to get upset about your branch, and then you own it.
Yes.
And I told him, you get 11 minutes. You get 11 minutes. That gives you time to go to the local gas station, pick up some Zen, and then you're good. You own it. You own it. You own it after that. But I had a senior military instructor, Command Sergeant Major retired Connor, who had been an RI at Florida, spent all his time in the 101st. All his time, beside his instructor time and the time as an SMI. But I remember he told me that day, he's like, it's going to be okay. That platoon sergeant's going to put you right here underneath your arm, and they're going to take care of you. And that night, I went out and rucked 8 miles, which if you knew Cadet Howell, I never did that on my own time. I never did that. Not rucking. I was more a weightlifter, runner. And I guess I kind of got excited about it. I knew Ranger School was going to happen, and it did. That was an expectation as an infantry officer. So I showed up at Bullock, and I was in a pretty heavy West Point class. My platoon was pretty heavy West Point.
What month was this?
And I showed up. My first job was working. It's now called Basic Camp at Fort Knox. So it was probably August, sir, of 2013. Okay. So the weather was great at Fort Benning, and I showed up with this heavy West Point class, and these are all alpha males.
Yeah.
These are guys who wanted to branch infantry. They've just been living and breathing infantry their 4 years at West Point, and I was not like that. But I made it through Bullock. I did decent. I wasn't the best. I wasn't the worst. And then I went to Ranger School. I had an extended stay. I recycled in mountains. And this kind of speaks to, I guess, the leaders that helped shape me. I'll never forget, I recycled in mountains during Best Ranger competition. So I was there for like a month and a half. And Sergeant Major Connor, he called me. I called him on the payphones. and he just told me, don't quit, don't quit. He's like, I believe in you and you can do this. And just that quick 5-minute phone call on the payphones, I mean, it really made me think I can do this. And I did. I married my wife. She was also a cadet in our same
Oh
program.
yeah.
She was an active duty nurse. Yeah, cadet love does work, sir. It does work.
And you
I'm a
said she
big
was a
believer in
nurse, so she was
it.
in nursing school.
Yes, sir. So I was doing PE. She was doing nursing school. So it was much more of a rigorous thing for
Yeah.
her. But she got stationed here at JBLM, and they realigned my orders. I was supposed to go to Korea, and I ended up coming here to JBLM. And I got assigned to 123 Infantry, the Tomahawks.
Yes.
Uh, my favorite unit I've ever been in. And I will tell you, when I first showed up, I immediately got sent down to the line to take a platoon. And a lot of people ask questions about the content I put out on social media, especially like I call them the cringe officer conversations. And a lot of those are based on my time as a PL, my first 12 months or 8 months, because I sat down with my commander, and the first thing he told me was, "Hey, just so you know, welcome to the unit. Just so you know, I can't fire you, but I can recommend to the battalion commander that you can be fired." And I was like, "What?" And like, that's the first statement out of your mouth. I was like, "Wow, I didn't think that would be the first thing that was said to me." Um, and I worked with that guy for a long time. When I moved to HHC, I worked for him again. But he definitely inspired a lot of the
I
content that
love
I
it.
produce now. And yeah, yeah. And there's things, I will say it was rough. It was a very abrupt way to. I always imagined I would work for, like the Captain Dick
Yeah.
Winters, the guy
Don't
who's,
we all? Yeah.
meant, the things you grew up watching. And I mean, he was very abrasive. But there were so many things that I learned through that experience, like attention to detail, and he was very obsessed with doctrine. And I was, that was not a strong suit of mine. I remember after the first week, I went out and bought all the Stryker Platoon Leader FM. I bought that, and I carried it everywhere with me. But it was a very abrupt way to become a platoon leader, but I loved it. I would do anything to go back and get 24 hours with that platoon. I didn't have the strongest platoon sergeant. I had an E6 who he was not the strongest, but I had really good squad leaders and team
Hmm.
leaders. One squad leader in particular who's now a Green Beret, and it about 6 months in, I went through a full training cycle when I showed up, from M4 ranges all the way to a rotation at NTC, and platoon live fires. That was like, I remember my commander told me a week before, he's like, what makes me most nervous is like, you have platoon live fires next week, and I have no idea what you're going to do. Um, but with the help of my platoon, it wasn't me. It went great. It was a great learning experience. Those squad leaders just, I mean, they just did their job and they made me better. And yeah, my commander got moved not long after platoon live fires to take HHC, and I did the NTC rotation with my platoon. So it was a great year. I love that. We were called the Tactical Llamas. That was our platoon, and BCO 123 Infantry. And I guess the one other thing I will mention during that time, when we got to around the company live fire stage, I got to meet Colonel Teddy Kleisner, um, who I knew that guy was legit when he wasn't even in command yet, and he showed up to walk the lanes or drive, drive in the back of right in the back of the strikers for company live fires. I was like, you shouldn't even be like, you should be settling your family, all of this, and you're taking time to be out here at YTC. And he really made me just want to be so much better. And he was in command 2 years there, and he had been a company commander in that unit, so he knew the unit history, and that's why for forever I will always love 123 and the 23rd Infantry, because of Colonel Kleisner. He was the
Yeah.
man. So yeah.
A couple things you said that when you talked about your first unit, and there's so many examples about how people that their first experience in the Army, if it's positive, that shapes the rest of their military career. For going forward, whether they stay in the Army for long term or not. Their first experience, whether they're a private or a lieutenant. The second thing you said right there at the end was the battalion commander effect. And the effect of a battalion commander, that you could have intermediate leaders that are abrasive. You could have intermediate leaders, and we're going to learn something from all of them, right? The good ones and the bad ones. The ones that are good for different reasons. This one's really nice to you, but he's very bad at doctrine. He doesn't understand how to fight. This one knows how to fight. He's really good at, he teaches you a ton. You learn about discipline, but he's kind of hard. It's hard. He's hard to be around, right? And so
Yes,
you
sir.
learn from all of those. But the battalion commander effect, the article that's out there, I mean, it talks about, it's like the stats show that battalion commanders that have the great effect on their people, like the amount of their officers that go forward in the Army are like 80% versus like a 20% numbers for the battalion commanders that have the opposite effect on their people. Again, regardless of the field grades and the company commanders that they have, the effect that a commander has. So it was great to hear that.
Yes, sir. And I guess that's one thing about Colonel Kleisner I always appreciated. I thought he had such a passion and he loved his lieutenants, all of them. Didn't matter if you were, tabless, if you were, the most squared away ever. He loved them all. I mean, of course, if you were tabless, he's like, hey, let's get you back to Ranger School. Yeah, he had those expectations, but I never doubted with any interaction just how he ran his LPD programs. Even at CTCs, like NTC, we went twice with him, and just the time he took to sit down with a lieutenant prior to going out to the box. It really inspired me. Like, and I hope to be the same way if I get battalion command one day, to just really have a passion for loving lieutenants, and making them better, because it worked. It did.
Yeah. Hey, I want to ask you about something you just said, but it's also a question that I get asked. I've been asked a little bit more recently, and it has to do with Ranger School. It has to do with EIB. It has to do with the infantry, right? Bottom line, I just got this question asked to me over across the street, not even 2 hours ago, and they said, what's your thoughts on Ranger School, EIB, and in the infantry? And it's like, how do you answer that? Because like in your heart, you just want to skip to the punchline. You want to skip to the point that it made me the soldier that I am, doing those things, right? More importantly, it made me into the leader that I am, so I can be a better leader for the soldiers that I was then put in charge of as a specialist and as a sergeant after I went to Ranger School, right? How would you react to that, or how would you kind of answer that question when you're approached from hey, come on, sir, you just skipped right to it, like go to Ranger School and get your EIB? Like, how can that be the solution?
Is there? I mean, me personally, I mean, I was not an alpha male, and Ranger School was the best thing I went to, because it provided a boost of confidence for me. It's like, hey, I know what it's like to be hungry and tired and wet, and I was able to, lead during those circumstances. And with EIB, I mean, I'll say this: that was a big focus for Colonel Kleisner, and it wasn't just. I don't think he viewed it as an individual event. It was a unit event. And I
Amen.
remember I was
Amen.
tagged up. I was tagged up. We called it the Lieutenant Rat Pack. There was about 12 of us lieutenants, in HAC at the time, and we went through it together. And that time, the 3 weeks that we went through that, you grow a team there. These were lieutenants I didn't really know. They were working in the S3 shop. Um, but it's just another piece for that confidence, especially as a platoon leader, and even I would say it helped me as a company commander as well. Just knowing, like, and I didn't do it by myself, right? There was some guy at Ranger School, some E4 or E5 that helped me get my go. I couldn't do that on my own. And I would say that the same thing was true with EIB. I mean, not only the people who are training you and instructing you, but your teammates. I mean, they help carry you through those events. And when I was I was blade running after the first two events. The stress was on. And I remember my company commander at the time, the same guy from the first, he told me, he's like, I know you're going to fail because you can't throw grenades. And but I had guys like Lieutenant Dave Hamsky right next to me, a West Pointer. I had known him from Bullock. We were in the same platoon, and there was strength in that, going through that together. But yeah, I tell, because I get this question a lot, especially from cadets, like, what are your thoughts on Ranger School? And it's like, you should absolutely go. I don't care what your branch is, even if you're an MP or CBurn, go. It's definitely easier as an infantry officer to get your slot, and the path is there. It's laid out in front of you. But all of you should want to go to that. It doesn't matter what your branch is. It's just one more thing that's going to give you confidence and make you a better leader.
Yeah. I think you can take the same exact approach that you just said towards the ESB and to the your EFMB, your field medical badge, regardless of what your MOS is. Like, it's a team building event. I loved how you said, the organization, right, goes out there together and helps them, as an NCO or your squad, like you take personal responsibility on helping the people in my squad be successful at E3B, whichever our tasks might
Right.
be. And when I was
Sure.
with the Rattlesnakes, we in the Cav Squadron, we had all three. So I had a lot of cavalrymen going through the ESB. We had a lot of infantrymen going through the EIB, and then we had all of our medics doing the ESB or the EFB, and I was bouncing around from one to the other, and I loved being out there with them. And just kind of motivating them one go at a time, just one station at a time, one task at a time, and then we'll get to it. And we made it through as a team, and I think
Yes, sir.
that was the biggest one of the biggest things, that big takeaway. So thanks for sharing that. I love that so much. How was the next couple years of your career? What was the next part that you were memorable?
So I mentioned earlier I was branch detailed, and I didn't try to pursue a VTIP, trying to stay with infantry, and that's a big regret for me. And what I was self-conscious about was I had never deployed as an infantry officer, and I noticed around that time when I was getting ready to PCS and switch MOSs, there were captains who were taking command who had never deployed, and they were treated. I thought this is just my perspective. They were treated a little bit differently, at least among their
Mm-hmm.
peers, especially the ones who had deployed multiple times. So I went with the intel route. So I went down to Fort Huachuca, Arizona, and then I was hunting a deployment. That was something I wanted to do, and we had a copy of the patch chart, and I saw this unit out at Fort Bragg. It was the 525 Expeditionary Military Intelligence Brigade. Used to be the BFSB. It was an airborne unit and converted. And I know everyone had always told me, because I would ask people who were intel, like, what do you think about the MI units? Like, where should I try to go? And they were all like, do not go to an intel unit. It's too many nerds in charge over there. It's like go try to get back with a BCT. But I really wanted that deployment, so I went to 525, and then 2 months later deployed to Afghanistan, and it was different. I knew it was different right away. The first week when I was there, we had a brigade org day, and I was used to the infantry,
Yep.
ways of doing a battalion org day. And I saw a soldier walking a lizard on a leather collar, and my wife was there with me as well. And she turned to me and she was like, what is going on? And it's like, where are we? Um, but I met a lot of good leaders there, and it was an intel brigade. So you were doing a lot of operation when we deployed. We were doing a lot of the collection. We weren't doing the S2 job technically. We were more taking part in collection for operations, supporting SOF, and 3rd Brigade 82nd was there. 101st was in charge when I first showed up, and I worked in a skiff the whole time. And that deployment, I'll tell you, I remember I showed up and we got off the plane, and I'm thinking, like, this could be a war zone. And we're at Bagram, and I walk into the pack shed, and I was like, I look at my phone, and I was like, we have Wi-Fi here? And then they show us our barracks room, and I was like, wait a second, there's air conditioning in here? Totally blew my doors off. Like, it was not what I was expecting for Afghanistan. But I worked with some really great people there. I worked in the Brigade S3 shop. I was the deputy Brigade S3. I fell under a guy, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Gill. one of the smartest individuals I've ever worked with. And um, he had been the collection manager at the 82nd prior and then came over to be the Brigade 3. And he really just taught. That was my first time on
Hmm.
staff. I had no time on staff. So learning what a weekly tasking order, like how to write that, different op orders, and then the battle rhythm for events to how to update the commanders. So it was a good experience. I was there for 13 months, and being at Bagram, I set PRs for run times, weightlifting. Yeah, it was great. And it was kind of cool to see with that unit, we weren't a BCT, so we were in a lot of the meetings with the general officers. So you kind of got to see a bigger
Uh-huh.
picture of Afghanistan every other day, and learn about the different collection platforms we had, including the aerial ISR task force that fell under us. And during that time, they held interviews for command, and I got selected for HAC Brigade, which I know a lot of people think like that's the second command. But I really believe that command is command is command. You can do
Yeah,
great things in all
agree.
billets. And I had halfway through the deployment, Colonel Danielle Cork took over the brigade. She was an awesome individual to serve with, and I was her HAC Brigade commander for 18 months. And then my goal was Colonel Kleisner had taken 1st Brigade, and I was like, this is my chance to get over to the 82nd and jump out of airplanes and be back with my old boss. And we did I did the whole AIM process, which was kind of new with the interviews and things like that. And I was driving back. I lived in Sanford, and I was driving from Fort Bragg to Sanford, and I got a notification. Or I checked my email. I pulled over on the side of the road, VPN'd in, and they said, you are going to the Intel career course to teach. And it really made me angry because I felt like, I'm trying to do the hard thing. I want to get back to the infantry. And I was very upset about it. And I remember I talked to Colonel Kleisner that night. And I was thinking worst case scenario, like I'm done. Like, you know what? Like if the Army's not going to let me do what I want to do, I'll get out and, maybe explore this National Guard thing. And Colonel Kleisner told me, you are bitter and angry right now. Do not do that. He's like, take the assignment and go and figure your life out later. He's like, I get it. You're angry and you wanted to be over here. And so I listened to him because
Yeah.
Colonel Kleisner's the man. And I took that assignment to Fort Huachuca, and this kind of starts the whole transition to National Guard AGR. I had been called when I was at Fort Bragg a couple of weeks before I got those orders, by a service member who had worked here at 123 Infantry, and he had transitioned to the AGR life. And he called me on a rainy day at Fort Bragg, and he told me, John, what are you doing right now? He's like, you need to come to the Guard. He's like, the thing he used to sell me on was, if you come to AGR in Washington, you don't have to work Mondays. And I was like, that is complete BS. There's always people working, on Mondays. That's always a thing. But he also talked about, just the importance of the National Guard and how they had backfilled units for the surge, and how it was good stability for the family. Um, so he gave me the website for where all the jobs were posting, and he really encouraged me to do that. So en route to Fort Huachuca, Arizona, driving with my two boys and my wife my wife and my two boys at the time. We didn't have our third one yet. I applied at a hotel, sent all my stuff in, and I got to Huachuca, and I was the only guy there as an instructor who had never been a battalion S2.
Mm.
And they were blown away as like, why were you even sent here? Like, nothing about,
Yeah.
IPB or any of that. And they stuck me in the skiff teaching single source, all the different ints. And I will say, I mean, this is the great thing about the Army. And I know I'll probably cover this at the end a little bit more, but every unit, no matter how much it sucks, where it's at, there's always going to be some goodness
Yeah.
there. And for me, with that assignment, it was the students. They were awesome. And I really, it was pretty cool because then I could, if I knew guys who were going to the 82nd, to the 1st Brigade, I could hit up Colonel Kleisner and be like, hey, sir, you've got this awesome guy, former, detailed field artillery, a stud who's coming to you, and kind of help them out and with their career and their path. But I did apply for AGR. How that kind of works, they hold a board, so you send in your packet first, and then they interview you. And I got the job, and then I had to have the awkward conversation of explaining to that my immediate supervisor and then the battalion commander is like, "Hey, I want to do this, and I'm going to drop my UQR in order to transition to the Guard."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how long had you been there when you told him that?
2 months.
Yeah.
It was 2 months. My immediate supervisor, he had actually been my battalion S2 here, one, two,
Yeah.
three. So he was very supportive. The battalion commander it was a little bit of a different story. I think he was kind of confused about the AGR program. I
Right.
mean, it's something I don't think a lot of people know
It
about.
isn't. Yeah.
And in some ways, I think there is some of that might be the National Guard's fault
Yeah.
because it is a great gig. It is really great for the family as far as stability. But I had to explain that to the battalion commander. It's like, hey, I'm not trying to get out, sir. I just want to do something different, and it's just not here. But at the end of the day, they were supportive of the whole process, and the brigade commander down there at TRADOC was very
Mhm.
supportive. He met with me, and he understood everything. So it was a pretty good transition, I would
Yeah.
say. Yeah,
When a lot of people talk about the 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 hard times that come, like those tough conversations that you're going to have with your leadership about, I want to get out, I want to do something different, I want to go to this organization. After they have the conversation, it seems like most of the time they go, that wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. Right. And it just became a clarification moment. Like, hey, explain to me a little bit more about what the AGR is and what the process is, and how does that work? How does that work in what you're doing right now?
Yes, sir. So basically, how the AGR program works, it's state by state. So or they're all 54, the states and directorates. So they have billets. Washington does a really good job of hiring outside the state, and that's not true for every state. I know I had looked at like places like I'm originally from the South, right? So I looked at Tennessee and Georgia, and it was more of, hey, we're going to hire from
Mm-hmm.
within. But Washington does a really good job of hiring guys off active duty. So they post all their billets, and anyone could get onto those sites and check out what's available right now. And then you find one that matches up with your rank. Sometimes your MOS specifically for like enlisted soldiers. And then there now with IPSE, you send in your packet through that, and then they'll contact you back with an interview time. It can be in person or virtually. For me, it was virtually over Teams. Thank goodness for
Yeah.
Teams. One of the best things that came out of
Yeah.
COVID. But with knowledge management and everything, I'm nerding out right now. I live in that system right now. But yeah, you board, and then some jobs might be very competitive, some might not be. But I think my class, or for my position, there were like 20 guys who applied for it. And then once you interview, they tell you if you got the job or not. It's usually an email or a phone call. And then you have to start your packet for either a refrat or a UQR. And for me, it was I did have an ADSO after PCSing out of 1 year, so I had to submit a waiver with my packet, and it had to go through all the steps in the basically from the company all the way through the brigade over to HRC and get signed off on. And I had a waiver in mind, so there was no guarantee I was going to get released from active duty. So I was almost in like this whole
Mm-hmm.
period, like what's going to happen? Like if it comes back denied, am I done? With everything as far as on active duty, like I wasn't sure how I would be treated at that
Yeah.
point because I definitely tried, to exit. Um, but my packet came back approved, and then I had to basically ETS from active duty, but all my time rolled over. My years of active service rolled over. So at that point, I was at 9 years, and then the last three I've spent in the Guard. But it was a very smooth process, at least for me. I love the Washington Army National Guard. It's been very good to me and my family, and I think they did a great job of communicating with me throughout that process and the UQR process and the whole transfer. It was a great way, and I knew it was going to be a good thing. I had several people from the unit who didn't even know me who reached out prior from the 81st Strike Brigade up here, and they were like, "Hey, we're looking forward to having you on the team, and can't wait for you to get here." And I was like, that's a good
What
sign.
was the
So.
position that you interviewed for?
So it was a brigade AS3 job up here, and I told them in my interview because one of the things they had asked was, "What do you want to do when you come up here?" And I was like, "I don't want to do anything Intel related." I was like, "I want to I want to be back with the BCT operations." I threw around the possibility of like, I want to do if I can do if I can do an infantry company command, I want to do it. I want to be back with the infantry. And I showed up as a Brigade AS3 and did that for about 6 months. So I was only there for a short time, but it was a great job. I really enjoyed working that. I love coup ops. I'm going to go be the G33 here soon for the state, and I love coup ops. I have writing a weekly tasking order just makes my day.
Yeah.
I know that's right. It's probably weird to say, but I love doing that. It really just drives me doing that. Coup ops is my thing.
Yeah. What is like
So,
you said you went up there for those first 6 months and then the next year after that. What is like a normal week, month, 6 months look like when you're AGR?
So everything you do in a BCT, everything you do in a year for active duty in a BCT, it takes 5 years. So for the National Guard, it's the majority of your force is part-time. The weekend warrior, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks out of the year for annual training. And I always say, hey, you're on call in case something happens in the
Mm-hmm.
state. And Washington has been active. We have wildland firefires that happen every year. But 6 months, I mean, um, uh, I did take an infantry company command when I got up here. And I was very surprised. My wife, after she left active duty, she went to the reserves, and she did not have a very good experience. She didn't like drill weekends. And so I was kind of wondering, like, what's drill weekend going to be like? A weekend, the 1 weekend out of the month. And I showed up at the company I was supposed to take a couple of months later. And the first thing I look around and it's like, there's a ton of guys here from 275. I was like, I've never seen this many Ranger qualified and actually Ranger soldiers in one place ever in my life. And so I was like, that's kind of cool. And then I observed that weekend, and it was incredible to see how much they made happen on a Saturday. So drill weekend is when you get everything done because that's when your whole force is here. And then the stuff in between that, that's where the AGRs really process pay, anything for promotions, anything that's coming from higher or National Guard Bureau. They're processing that through the orders process, which in the Guard, I think that was a cool thing for me to learn was just how much the orders process drove
Mm-hmm.
everything. Because that was the only way to communicate to soldiers, writing an op order for every drill weekend every month as a company commander. That was cool. I didn't do that a lot during my first command, but it made me better. But the AGRs handle everything in between, any soldier issues, anything like that. So it's a skeleton crew. One company will have 3 AGRs full time taking care of that infantry company. So they work a
Yeah.
lot. It's because a supply sergeant and then usually an E7 and an E6. So processing all the pay, promotions, everything. So it's been cool. Does that answer your question,
Yeah,
sir?
totally
I
does.
hope I did a good
Yeah,
job.
and
Yeah.
like you said, like you didn't know these things before you showed up, and now it kind of becomes like commonplace. But you know, every unit that doesn't people that don't understand this stuff because they don't get to live through it, and a lot of people don't
Right.
even know that these opportunities are out there. That I want to go to a home state, I want to go to the Guard, I want to continue to serve. I want to do something different. I don't want to be active duty, but I still love kind of some of the things about the Army, and this gives you a little bit of all of that. You told me a little bit about recruiting, right, and some of the recruiting things. How did that come to be?
Okay, so I've been at the brigade. I'm loving my job, right? I'm in command. of my infantry company. I was like, this National Guard thing is the best thing ever. And I went to a buddy's promotion ceremony. He was getting pinned to 04. He had been hired with me at the same time. And my brigade XO, he's like, hey, John, can you step in my office? It's like, I just got an email from the chief of staff. And he's like, you're going to recruiting. And I was like, I don't want to do that. Everyone always says recruiting sucks. That like that's the terrible place to be. It's almost like a career ender. Um, and then I talked to my brigade three, and I was like, hey, like, should I try to like push back on this? And he was like, no. And he's like, well, first thing he's like, you don't have a choice. He's like, the chief of staff's telling you you're going to go there, John.
Yeah.
So you're going. But he had spent some time working in recruiting, and he told me, he's like, you will learn more about the whole state and all these different units we have than any of your time here at the brigade. So I went. I was sent over to be the brigade S3, and sorry, the recruiting or retention battalion S3, and it was very different. I mean, that is a hard organization. I think it's kind of a balance because you have this number you have to meet, and then you have these requirements that you might have, admin requirements from the state, and it's like, where do you find the balance for that? You can't just overdrive on production and leave the admin
Uh-huh.
behind, because you'll fail, and you can't do the opposite of that either. So it was. I went into there as a captain. I had been picked up for major, but I delayed it to do the infantry command. That was something I wanted to do, so I waited about a year and a half to pin major. But I found myself standing up a lot of systems, especially as S3, weekly tasking orders, log syncs, a lot of things that didn't exist. And it was cool because one thing I didn't mention with my infantry command, I only had 50 people. We were at Yakima Training Center, and I had an end strength problem. And when I went over to recruiting, I embraced it, and I found out about the active component to reserve component, or active component to National Guard, and how many people were coming in from active duty to the National Guard. And we found out he was an E7 at the time. Now he direct commissioned to a lieutenant. We found out that there were guys from 275 who were interested in the Guard. So when I found that out, I was like, I want their names and I want their numbers. I told the E7 who handled all those transitions, and I told Taylor Anderson, Second Lieutenant Taylor Anderson, is like, we're going to go meet these guys for coffee, and we're going to tag team. And I was like, you've got the experience. You were in 275, a long time ago, but the Guard has worked for you. And I was like, I'm the company commander, so we'll sell them on ACO 1 of the 161. And that was so cool. I mean, I still do that, even though I've left that company, trying to send talent that way. But we'd sit them down for coffee, and the first thing they always asked was, how much does the National Guard suck? And that was the thing they were interested in. And I mean, Taylor could talk a little bit about that because he was used to it. I mean, there's nothing special about me. I've only been regular Army or National Guard, but I could kind of tell them, like what my vision was for the
Uh-huh.
company, and what I could do for them. And we had the flexibility of like, hey, if you're going to the police academy or the fire academy, I won't make you come to drill during that time. There's that
Yep.
flexibility. You can go pursue those things and make up your drill at a later time. So I think the number we finished with, I mean, we just had one in process last month. We got 9 from 275.
Wow.
And that was cool because it was like, I'm seeing these guys, beating them for Starbucks. We get them in the Guard. I would go swear them in over at the local Waller Hall on JBLM. Swag them out. I give them the T-shirt, the
Yeah.
coin, everything, and then they're showing up at drill. And there is a transition period. Some of those guys. I mean, you're in the NFL and you're coming to, I don't even know what you would call the National Guard, what league it's in, maybe Division 3 or Division 2. So there is a transition period, but once it clicks for them, those guys are out there
Yeah.
leading, and they execute. And it really made that company so much better. And by the time I left that company, we were up to 100. in between, what we got from active duty
That's
and then
good
the
for
emphasis.
an active company, 100 people.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes, sir. And it was incredible to watch that company grow. And there were also things like I really got to know my recruiters in that area. And anytime they had a soldier that enlisted for that company, I was like, here's a shirt, send me a picture. I'm going to throw that up on the
Yeah.
Instagram, try to make them feel a little bit special. And I would usually try to call those soldiers as well, welcome to the unit. But I definitely used and abused my AGR job in recruiting to promote my part-time job in that command, and it was such a beneficial experience being a part of that. And that all became possible due to a job that I didn't even want to go to, So never discount anywhere they send you. You can do
Yeah.
great things there, and there's good people working in every
Yeah,
unit.
God's got a plan for all of us along the way.
So,
A lot of times we think this is what's best for us. We think this is what we want to do. Then you go out there and try it with the right attitude. You're like, oh my goodness, like that changed my life. Kind of
yes,
going
sir.
out there, and you're still doing that recruiting right now, right?
Yes, sir. So I'm now the XO. For the recruiting or retention battalion. And everyone talks about the recruiting crisis and the retention crisis. I mean, this year has been one of the biggest years for our state as far as the numbers. And my commander, I mean, he's an infantry officer, '06. He was my battalion commander back in the day here when I was in company command. So that was kind of cool too. But I mean, he just brought common sense to recruiting. It's accountability, and then freeing up the NCOs who've been doing this for, some of them 20
Yeah.
years. And I don't. And that's the interesting thing with recruiting. It's like you never win. You never win. Every FY, you're going to get a
Yep.
mission, and you got to put this many people in. And but he led with common sense, and I mean, it's been a great year working there, and I've enjoyed being the XO as well, and getting to work with the staff, and manage money, and continue to learn in that role as well.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You. s-
But I'm always still recruiting. You got to be what's you always selling, always
Always
closing.
closing, always selling. Yes. Yes. When
Yes,
when
sir.
you when you're out there and you're doing this recruiting, what are you guys seeing now? I know you're not kind of like right out there at the high schools and you're out on the streets, but you're close enough to kind of get a sense, right, for the recruiting and how it's going out there. What are you guys seeing from a quality perspective, not just numbers perspective?
I mean, it varies, right? And in different states, it is easier and harder. I would say we're kind of a middle state where, as far as the difficulty of recruiting, a big state like Texas, their mission is huge. They're in all their high schools. There's some high schools we can't send a recruiter in, but as far as the talent, I mean, I would say the soldiers I got during my company command were just, young 18-year-old excited Americans. Some of them were, you know, um, from English as a second language family, and this was a new thing for them that their parents supported, and they wanted to serve, they wanted to give back. So I would say it varies. There are some people that, yes, they're medically qualified and they meet all the requirements, but you wouldn't consider them a
Yeah.
stud. But the way I look at that is, that's really up to the unit to help out with
Help
too.
get
Like
them
you
there.
grow that
Yeah.
soldier, and
Finish raising them.
yes, sir. You make them better. And that was one of the best things about serving in one of the 161 infantry, the Highlanders out in Spokane. I thought they were great at that. I mean, and their retention showed it.
Yeah.
You take a brand new soldier, part-time soldier, and train them. And I wouldn't say we were being easy on them or anything like that. We expected a lot, but treating with respect and making them better,
Yeah.
and they stayed. So I learned a lot from that. And it's kind of funny looking back on active duty. I didn't care at all about recruiting. I didn't. I never went out of my way to tell someone, at the gym or something like, "Hey, I serve. Why don't you think about that?" I cared about retention, for as a platoon leader in a company, because keeping those people in. But it definitely changed my view on, like, I've experienced a good thing. I should be telling everyone about
Yeah.
it. So, that being in recruiting, that has completely flipped my switch about always be selling, always be telling your story and how the Army has helped you and your
Yeah,
family.
and the conversation I had with the Wolfhounds today was there was everything from a PFC all the way up to their battalion commander that was in the room, right? So I was bouncing back and forth on the things that the Army did for me as I was growing up, but more importantly, the people that were in the Army kind of established
Right.
that foundation. If they would have judged me based on what I looked like coming into the Army, 5'10", size 9 shoe, 17-year-old kid that weighed about 145 pounds, like, there's no way somebody would have said that's a future Army Ranger right there, right? But
Right.
instead, I make it through RIP, and I get out to my unit, and the first thing they said was double meals, Leclerc. You're eating, double meal. You're eating all the time. You need to start hitting the gym, start doing all these workouts. Like that, we need to get you to be bigger so you can carry this machine gun, so you can go this. That's what they did from with me. And so that, if you come in with the right attitude, you never know who's going to be the one that falls in love with the Army and the people that they're a part of, that they're doing it with, right?
Yes, sir. And one other thing I'll add on, when we talk about, taking someone off the streets, 18-year-old, the Guard has this thing it's called the RTLI program, the Ranger Team Leader Initiative. And it's basically you go to basic AIT. It's for 11 Bravos and 11 Charlies right now. And then they send them to pre-Ranger, and then they go to Ranger school. And we've had, the numbers aren't crazy, but we've had 5 pass that. And that's just so cool. You took a new kid, you sent him to training, he stayed down there, and he's coming back with a tab.
Wow.
And when I was out at Sandhurst last week, I got to meet one of the applicants who did that, and now he's a cadet up at West Point. And it's just so cool. I never saw that on active duty, a brand new private, showing up to your unit already tabbed.
Yeah.
And some of these guys stay down there, they get air assault, airborne, and rappel
Wow.
master. And it's just like, man, you're coming back to in the Guard with all that. And they're extremely motivated. So, that's kind of a cool thing the Guards got going on right now, and we've seen the benefits of doing it. We're reaping the rewards.
Wow. And another example of like, I wouldn't know about that stuff if you didn't just share that, right? And then, the RTAC program that they got going down there at Fort Benning, that I have known about that for a while, but a lot of people don't know about that they have there at Fort Benning.
Right.
That takes a lot of the Guard folks, right? They take them straight out of basic and they put them through that. How many weeks is RTAC?
I want to say 4 to 6. Don't quote me on
Yeah.
that. I want to say it's pretty
Yeah.
fast, but it's completely staffed by National Guard soldiers for RTLI. They have guys down there on temporary orders, and they do a great job. We've had several Guard soldiers from Washington that went down there to be instructors, and when I talked to that cadet at West Point last week, he was saying like that was just such a great experience. Like it really did prep me for school. He's like, I was in shape already, but as far as learning the
Yeah. The
tactics,
tactics.
the things, especially in Derby, he's like, I was prepped.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. So I love that program. And yeah, the thing is like how do you advertise and broadcast that more to everyone in the Guard? So it's not just a couple select guys going.
Yeah, I had a platoon leader when I was in the Rattlesnakes, Remy Pouncipore, that from West Point, that got his tab, and then he taught there for a few months, all the formations, order, movement, Ranger tactics, and everything there. He taught that for a few months before he came out here to Hawaii to our organization.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, although he was an armor officer who'd been to Ranger School, we put him straight in as a second lieutenant into our dismounted reconnaissance troop because of his skills and the skills that he had. I want to go into the direction of like last week you were at Sandhurst. You've now had an ROTC experience. You got to see what was out at West Point. You went to Sandhurst. You got to see a lot of what the Army's doing and producing these cadets. What's the thing that's kind of resonated with you the most, seeing so much over the last couple months?
So I would say it really started for me in October of last year when I went down to Fort Knox and I met some of the brand new second lieutenants. And I would say prior to that, I was very cynical about the younger generation of officers. I was, and it was completely based on just things in my head. I had no proof. But the Army, as far as when it comes to new officers, I think we are in great hands with this next generation of second lieutenants. And a couple things I'll point out with that. One of the things I really try to push is branch infantry. I think it will be the best experience you have, and if you want to do the branch detail program, absolutely. But when I went to Fort Knox last October to work with Cadet Command and their PAO team, I expected, like everyone's going to want to branch intel or cyber. No one's wanting to do hard things. And the first group of lieutenants I had that I talked to there, I was like, who's branching infantry? And I saw 7 hands shoot up. And these guys like, come on in, let's talk. And these guys are on fire about going to Ranger School and being platoon leaders. And then in Sandhurst, that's where, all these teams that competed in their own ROTC brigades and Ranger Challenge, and then the West Pointers as well. There's so many officers that want to do those hard things. I met 2 cadets, one from the University of Minnesota, one from Texas A&M. They'd already been to sapper school, both branching infantry, and their teams were. It was such a great experience getting to talk to them, just how driven they were, and just the drive to do hard things. I never heard a single cadet complain about anything in that competition, and that competition sucked physically. Like it was I told my wife when I got back, is like, there's no way Cadet John Howell could have done that his MS4 year. Like it would have broke me off.
I saw the exercises and the events that they were doing, and I'm so thankful that they're not asking me to go through some of those obstacles and carry that. Thank God.
It was incredible. They do those physical competitions, and then, hey, 5 minutes, throw on your ruck and run out of here. They're in shape. They're I would say the biggest thing that impressed me. I'm a real big fan of General Marshall. I just love reading stuff about him, and I think there were 7 qualities he looked for in other officers and general officers. And one of the things that he was looking for was, are they positive and are they cheerful? And I really noticed that among the cadets I saw up at Sandhurst. They weren't complaining about being there. They spoke so highly of their cadre. I never saw any of them disrespect their cadre or other cadets. They might have talked to, a little bit of smack about other teams, which is, that's good. That's right. But they're so positive and aggressive in that way. But yeah, they were just so positive, and for me that was very rewarding. And even for the cadets that I met up at West Point who were not competing, same way, wanting to branch infantry, aviation, do hard things, and they're positive as well. So that was what impressed me the most, and it gave me just a lot of satisfaction coming back and telling my wife and my commanders, like, these cadets are legit. And they're going to do great things.
Yeah,
they are.
That's what I see when I see those videos. When I say, like, I'm reading between the lines, when I see you out there talking to those folks, when I see them on the West Point page, like running across the thing, and I see the ROTC page, same thing. The fire in their eyes, how they can't wait to win for their team, to work together as a team, to support each other, to support the other teams. Right. That's what I'm seeing when I'm reading between the lines on those people. And then I got and then with Ryan, my daughter being out there, like, she's seeing the same things, and she's saying the same things.
Yes, sir. It's great, and it definitely makes me ashamed of being like a cynic, 3 years ago. And it's so easy to trash the younger generation. I remember my first commander did that. The line I drop in a lot of my videos is like, millennials, this generation. I know what it's like to be called that, and I'm ashamed that I turned into the same thing, looking down on the younger generation and trashing them. But I think I've seen it, I've observed it, and my attitude is completely shifted in that way.
Yeah. And now you're kind of sharing that with folks. You're sharing it in a different ways. How did it get to where you wanted to start sharing some of this stuff through social media?
So I working in recruiting, there was a sister battalion, infantry battalion, who placed a lot of emphasis on social media. And when I came in into command, they were winning in the info space. They had it, and it made me think a lot back to my deployment in Afghanistan. I remember General Miller, who was in charge during my time there. He always started every brief with what's going on in the info space. So being in my battalion in my company, I was like,
Hmm.
the Dark Rifles aren't the best battalion. We are. So why are we surrendering this to them? So I started an Instagram page for
You just
recruiting.
said
Mainly,
the
that's why
Dark
I did it.
Rifles. That brigade's run by Craig Broyles, right?
Yes,
Me, me,
sir. Oh, the 81st Striker
me,
Brigade. Yes, sir.
Craig and I were in the
He's the
same
man.
squad in Bolick.
No
Yes,
way.
we.
Okay, I'm a big
Yeah,
fan. I'm
I've
a
been
big fan.
following, and we've been keeping in touch since we were second lieutenants at Bolick
What?
back in the
No
day. We were
way.
in the same squad, and then we did one of the weekends we spent together, my family and his family, by the pool with our kids doing a birthday party, and then we kind of went in our two different directions, for the next 10 to 15 years or something like that. But yeah, Craig
Yeah,
Broyles.
that's so
In
cool. Yeah, yeah. See, sir, even know what a dark rifle is.
That's right. Because
They
their social
continue
media was
to
through the
have that.
roof. And because I
Right.
mean, I told them, I was like, hey, I'm watching your stuff. And like, I want to be a part of the Dark Rifles. And then I watched some of his YouTube videos where he was like teaching about tactics and all that stuff. And I was like, man, what a great way to to share what you know about tactics with your organization. Because especially if you're in the guard, right? It's like, hey, I want to pick something
Right.
up on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and where can I get it? Oh, I
Hmm.
can see my battalion commander, talking, writing on a whiteboard. It's recorded. It's put up on YouTube. I want to learn or something like that. I'm trying to do that now with JPMRC and saying like, what are we learning in the Arctic? What are we learning in Hawaii? Record those videos, put them up on YouTube. So someone who's getting ready to go do a rotation, a CTC rotation, be like, hey, what did they learn last time? Go watch one of the videos. That's what we're trying to put that together. And it doesn't happen overnight though, right?
Right. Yes, sir. It's a journey. It's a journey. But the dark rifles, I mean, they made me want to. I was like, I'm not going to let you just win. So I stood up an Instagram page for the unit, and if you went back and looked at some of my earlier videos, it was like me working out because it's hard. That it's kind of what's impressive with Colonel Broyles and the dark rifles is you're only drilling once a month and then 2 weeks out of the year. And unless you mobilize, the ability to get content from your unit isn't there. That's something I'm kind of jealous from active duty because you could film all day.
Yeah.
There's training happening all the time. But I started that page, and my early videos were terrible. And then we went to Thailand for Hanuman Guardian, and I was doing videos of our training in the lead up to that. But in Thailand, that's when I mean I had several GoPros. I threw them on soldiers, and I was like, just be filming all day, and then I'll take it back and edit it. And so the videos kind of picked up in that way, but I still didn't have a very big following. And then there's this guy named Sergeant First Class Tyler Butterworth. He works at National Guard Bureau. He's 11 Bravo with a mustache, so but don't hold it against him. I don't know if you know who
I
he
feel
is,
like I'm supposed to know who
but
this name is. Keep going.
all right. So he was a National Guard recruiter in Virginia, and he had started doing social media for recruiting. And we brought him out here after I got back from Thailand. He came out to Washington, and what he was using was humor. That was his big thing. And we sat down. I'm just asking him, how are you doing this? I mean, you have like 40,000 followers at this point. You're an E6, just recruiting. And he told me, he was like, hey, the shooting videos are great. The soldier stories are great. Like, you need to keep doing those. Those are awesome. But he's like, add in a little mix of humor. Just do that. And I was like, well, I'm not that guy. I can't do that.
Yeah.
And but we shot a couple of videos with him, kind of got to see how he did it. And then one weekend, I grabbed my lieutenant, Taylor Anderson, and I was like, we're going to try to make a funny video. And it might fail, but we're going to try to do it. And we went to the brigade, 81st Striker Brigade headquarters, and no one was there. Everyone was off on a Friday. and we made a video about I think the first one we made was about having a conversation about someone re-enlisting, and I thought it was 3 years, and he actually re-enlisted for 6 years. And then it cuts to a montage of music, and the commander just ends up crying because he's so thankful. And that was the first video we did with humor, and I noticed that it trended better. More. It was a lot bigger than anything we had ever done before prior to that. So then we started adding in the humor, and I've tried to balance that. I do these I call them Zenflections, where I usually talk about
Love
someone,
it.
a leader. Yeah, I'm a Zen addict. I'm sorry, but where I talk about a leader, who did something for me or taught me something. That's usually what I try to relate it back to. But the humor has been key, and that kind of launched me into like the cadet command aspect of it. I am a big fan of meme pages. I think that is one of the best things that happened to the Army, because I think it gives soldiers an outlet to complain, um, or bring something up or make something a joke that's funny. And I kind of learned that from Colonel Broyles, because he had several in his battalion when he was at the Dark Rifles, and he didn't try to shut them down. He just told them like, hey, just keep it appropriate, nothing, crazy off the wall. But he let them, do their thing. And I think for him that really helped his command, because he didn't go to war with the meme
Hmm.
pages, and they wield a lot of power. The soldiers follow those, they really do. But I'm a big fan of the meme pages as well. And as I started to continue to post, that was something I kind of integrated as well, was memes, and that has resonated very well with the cadets
Yeah.
too. So
Yeah.
yeah, but
You said you dabbled in it right there with the memes pages and the social media and the humor, and you said it kind of it gives the soldiers an outlet. It resonates with them. What other things are resonating with them a little bit more um, today? Because what I've personally noticed is like when they first started off with the memes pages, it was like WTF moments, right? And it was like, quickly highlight the company that's got everybody standing in formation for too long. And then all of a sudden they got to answer for it, right? Oh my God. But like that has gone away. It's like that's not cool anymore. It's like, yeah, everybody knows like if you lose nods, you're going to search for them. Like that's not funny anymore,
right.
But instead, it's like they've used it to highlight positive things. And it was like and the negative stuff was funny for a second, but now they're starting to highlight a little bit some of the funny things, but the positive things. What is resonating with people in that space right
So,
now?
so the cool thing of working in recruiting, I also run reception for everyone that comes into the guard. So one weekend out of the month, they show up, do their medical readiness, get their gear. And what resonates as well is soldiers. I had a soldier come up to me about a month ago, and he told me, he's like, hey, sir, I thought he was joking. He's like, the only reason why I joined was because uh, I saw one of your videos, and I was like, yeah, oh, that's cool. I didn't believe him. And I asked who his recruiter was, and I was like, okay, you might be telling me the truth just based on the numbers for that particular recruiter. But taking a picture with them and then putting it up there, it's nothing flashy. I give a shout out to their unit. It's almost like a morale
Yeah.
post. I think the 82nd does a really good job of highlighting reenlistments, and some of them are crazy off the wall. Like out in a lake or on a commander's desk. I know the 123 commander last year, he did one where a soldier reenlisted on his desk, and the battalion commander reenlisted him. And that is so cool. I never saw that when I was a platoon leader. But someone was smart enough to think, I'm going to do this. Yes, it is a little bit different. And then we're going to take a photo on it and throw it out to the world to see.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a positive story, instead of, like, hey, this unit sucks, or, we're digging through tricons right now. Like, I think
Yeah,
that is
I just
gone
saw
for the
one.
most
I
part.
saw one. I think it was this morning. The 25th posted one of a guy re-enlisting, all right there on the range with the machine guns right out behind him, and like they went cyclic, like right when he was finishing, and you could see the smoke, you could hear it. It was cool. Yeah, like right there. That happened today.
Right. Right. And I mean that's the beautiful thing about social media. It's like yeah, the humor is great, but then just a photo sometimes can mean the world to someone. And it's just spreading the positive message of the Army and how excited people are to be here. So yeah, sometimes the photos are just yeah, it just like last week when I was up at Sandhurst, I took a picture with that cadet who graduated Ranger School and was up there, from Washington. And a lot of people, responded to that or shared
Yeah.
it. And that was cool. I totally didn't see that coming, but, people were excited about that, especially, here back in Washington. So I love that about about social media and the Army. It's like how much of a force of good it can be when it's used the right
Yeah.
way.
What have been some of the
Yeah.
risks, or what are some of the not used the right way that you've kind of that you've personally experienced, if any?
Um, there's the Army social media policy. I don't know if you've ever read it, but it is confusing. I find it very confusing because it basically says, um, "Hey, we prefer you not to post in uniform, but if you do, make sure you put in your bio, non-DoD, or there's like a statement to include, that you're not speaking on behalf of the Army." So. I know that was one of the big reasons for me a couple of months ago. I stopped, unless I was working with a PAO group. It's like, I'm not going to do this in uniform anymore. I'm going to do it in civilians just because this is a personal page. And I don't want anyone to ever construe that, that I'm violating the social media policy. Um, I would say, too, and I've told this to other people, don't just start doing stuff on social media without a greater reason to be doing it. It's really easy to get trapped up once gain a following especially when you monetize. It's like, oh man, how much money am I making? Should I start selling shirts now? Things like that, and it becomes more about you than it does about the Army and other people. So that was one of the things when I officially monetized and made money. I was like, I don't want any of it. It's all going to some kind of military, charity or non-DoD or nonprofit. Like, I don't want any of it because I don't want anyone to ever think that I'm doing this for John Howell. Like, this is for the Army and, for soldiers. So that's one I would say, just the pride of I mean, we are we are depraved. The human race is depraved. We're very selfish, and not letting it turning into, especially like an individual page where it's more about you than what it is about the cause and the Army. And I see that a lot. And I think that when you get to that level, it doesn't resonate with soldiers in the same way.
Yeah.
It doesn't. They don't believe you. They think it's fake. So, and so, I guess the two things I would say with that is, don't ever do it for the money or the fame, and have a greater reason for doing it that's bigger than yourself, than just you, if that makes sense.
I think it does. And before there was even policies on social media, and heck, before there was social media, it was like you would do things like, would you be doing it? If everybody knew you were doing this and everybody could see were you doing this, would you be proud of it? Would you be able to explain it to your spouse, your aunt, your grandma? Like, would you be embarrassed if they found out that you were doing it? And I think if you're doing it for all the right reasons, like it's easy to see, like, this is why we're doing it. This is why we're sharing. We want leaders to have a better understanding of what's driving people these days. That's why I do this, right? And that's why I share these things.
Right.
And it's absolutely not to make money. It's absolutely not to do any of those things. I want people to have a similar life to the life that I've been able to have because of the Army,
Right.
and because of the people that I've been interacting with over the years. And so now we can use this as an opportunity to share with people that are uncomfortable with social media, or they are uncomfortable as a leader on how to make decisions, or how to describe it. Like, how, the conversation we had an hour ago about Ranger School, and like, I'm uncomfortable standing in front of my formation and telling them why this is important. Well, how can we lead if you got to practice how to describe it? I love the way that you described that, and I'm going to take that and apply that to my leadership style. And when I'm talking to my soldiers and the NCOs and the young soldiers and the recruiters, that there's so much that to unpack on what you just kind of described there with the social media stuff.
And, yes, sir. And I think the one other thing I would add, I know because you hear the rumors, especially, just here in the state. There's some people that think that, Major John Howell is doing this for all the wrong reasons. And I talked to Colonel Broyles about this. He's a big fan of John Boyd, and we talk a lot about the great lengths about being agents of change. And John Boyd, I mean, there's definitely things he did. I feel like he sacrificed a lot of his family in order to, better the Air Force, the Marine Corps, and the military as itself. But I mean, there were people that said things about him, and just look at what he did to shape, the military. So you kind of have to you have to know, if you put yourself out there, there's going to be people that talk
Hmm.
and say things, and just at some point I was like, I don't care. Yeah, I know internally why I'm doing this, and I'm gonna keep doing it. And as long as I stay true to those
Yeah.
values and I don't change, and have a little bit of integrity, I'm okay with that. I can sleep at night, no matter how it impacts my career.
Yeah. And what ends up happening is when you invest that amount of energy and you talk to that many people, and the interaction that you had at West Point and the interactions that you had at Sandhurst, the interactions you had with cadets, you are impacting the future of our Army, in every one of those conversations. I just listened to a great podcast episode with Joe McCormick, and what he highlighted on was it's the day-to-day conversations that are arguably more important than those big events.
Mhm.
It's the 2-minute
Yes, sir.
conversation you had with a soldier. It's the 30-second conversation you had with this soldier. It's the constant little interactions that were way more important than the policy you put out. They were more important than
Yes,
the
sir.
than the letter of intent that you put up on a wall. They remember those little 30-second, 1 minute. And by investing in it, it prepares you for those things. And you're having a huge impact on people out there with it. I think so.
Oh, thanks, sir. Yeah, I mean, that was something I talked about with my wife. It was like, it was so cool, the interactions that were not caught on camera up at Sandhurst. And because we weren't interviewing, West Point cadets, but there were so many interactions there. And just getting to talk to them, getting to learn about them, and, just what they're planning on doing. That was better than any of the videos we
Yeah.
made. It was better than anything like that. So just that was the door to get in and be able to talk to them. But so many great stories. I can't even, I wouldn't even want to put a number on how many cadets I talked to, but it was just great. That's where I find the reward.
Hmm.
It's just, yeah, like what you're saying, those conversations like that, just one on one with guys and gals.
Yeah. Thanks so much
Sir.
for sharing that, and thanks for, being open enough to kind of, one, have this conversation, and two, share that much, because I learned a ton in the last 20 minutes just listening to the way you described that. I got 2 pages of notes here about how to help JPMRC and United States Army Pacific and the things that we're doing out here, and how do we communicate, like those things you just said. I'm going to implement as early as this weekend, with my
Awesome, sir.
organization kind of going forward. Um, the whole purpose of Teach Me to Fish, right, is to help leaders better understand what's driving people these days. And you shared it throughout this entire conversation of why you joined, why you stayed, why you went to the AGR, what you're doing with the recruiting. Um, was there anything that you've heard other episodes, and now we're kind of getting ready to land the plane? Was there anything that you think, based on all these different experiences that you got, that leaders need to understand that's going to help drive people? What's driving people these days?
Sir, I think the biggest one I would say is, it doesn't matter what your component is, if you're National Guard, Reserve, or active duty, always be selling. You put on that uniform, or even if when you take it off, you're a representation of the military. And we we know how much the Army changes lives. I mean, I see it every day, especially here in recruiting. But what are you doing to spread that word? That everyone should be a recruiter, I guess basically what I'm saying. And I remember the first time. It's awkward, right? It's kind of like if you're you're a Christian and you go out and witness. Like, that is one of the hardest things to do. I would say it's the same with with the Army. And I remember the first time I ever did that. There was a guy. I am not a handyman. My wife could tell you I am not around the house, so we have to outsource some things. And I had my doors were needing to be worked on, and this guy showed up. He was probably about 24, 25, and he's fixing the doors. And I was like, man, I need to talk to this guy about the Army, the National Guard. And I was like, gosh, I don't want to do this. This is awkward. And finally, it's like, come on, like, you're the only one here at CM, just say it. And so I asked him, like, hey, have you ever heard about the Army National Guard? And he's like, yeah, I heard about it. And he's like, I have a little interest in it. And and I kind of just talked to them about how, what it did for my life. And I gave him my business card, with my QR code. And I was like, hey, if you have any questions, just let me know. But every time I go to the gym or anything like that off base, if I'm playing pickleball, if there's someone, a young person, it's like, I want to tell them about the guard, because, or the Army. I don't think it matters what component you're in, but always be, sharing how the Army changed your life and bring in the next generation. And then I guess, secondly, every assignment is what you make of it. And I've talked about, having to go to TRADOC. I did not want to do that. I really appreciated Colonel Wayne talking about how his injury at West Point and then his orders being moved around, because it's like I kind of I resonated with that.
Yeah.
Like he had plans to go to I know it worked out, for him, and he got to go to the unit he wanted to go to. But I know there's so many stories, lieutenants are like, hey, I'm going to Fort Irwin. And it's like, you can do great things there.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you're going. And I've lived that twice, both going to TRADOC on active duty and then working in recruiting for 2.5 years. And you will make your experience and you can make that unit better. So don't complain. I would say same thing. You get 11 minutes. It's just like your branch. Go to the gas station, get yours in, and come back motivated to get in there. But you own where you work, and there's goodness everywhere. Everywhere you work, do the best that you can, and know that there's going to be at least one person that's doing good work as well. Doesn't matter what unit it is. And then finally, I tell this to cadets a lot. Realize what's important in life. Is it the college football game that your university lost? Is it that RCOM or the OER that you got? Or is it, hey, I took care of this soldier. I took a meal to them when their kid was born. Or is it just spending time with your family who's going to be there? I know I'm not talking anything new, but we all know at some point we are going to leave and the family is going to be there. They need to be there for us. And I think on the day when I leave, I'm not going to be, thinking about like the day after, I'm not going to be thinking about my EIB or, like, man, I really wish I could have gotten to the 82nd. I'm going to be appreciative of my boys and my wife. And I tell that to cadets, you should still want to go to Ranger School. Of course, you should want to get your EIB. Go to all the schools. Like, that's just going to make you better. But just realize nothing like that is ever going to give you true happiness. It's going to be the people around you and what you did for someone else. There's a great photo. I don't even think they say the line in the movie "It's a Wonderful Life," but the line is, "You can only take in life. You can only take with you what you gave away in life," and that's something I've always tried to live my life by. And yeah, I hope I can stay true to that, throughout my life in the Army and even afterwards. So those are my three things, sir. I know it's not that deep, on a large scale, but that would be the three things I'd want to say to especially junior officers and cadets that might be listening to this.
Well, thanks, brother. Nobody learns more from these episodes than I do. Got 3 pages of notes sitting in front of me right now. I'm thankful that you took some time to do this with me today, especially doing it so fast after Sandhurst and all this, the things that have been resonating over the last couple days, couple weeks, couple months, and that we were able to get this going, get this together, get this out. So I'm looking forward to sharing it with everybody.
Yes, sir. And just props to you. I did one YouTube episode that was long form, kind of podcast style. And I know the work that goes into these to edit and everything. So I really appreciate you doing this. I've binged like the last week a lot of the episodes. And my favorite ones, I mean, Colonel Wayne was a really great one, but General Gerard, I knew him. Or I ran into him when I was here at JBLM. I think he was at 7th ID or 1st Corps.
He's special.
And then Colonel Shaw also. I actually sent that one to my younger brother who's in command. And I was like, you got to listen to this. This has been one of the best podcast I've ever listened to. It's better than Joe Rogan, sir. So keep keep doing what you're doing, and I will try to do my best to get this out to the cadet and junior officer population as well, because they need to hear
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you. Thanks for listening today. I hope we sparked some thoughts about the people that have inspired you to be who you are today. I hope you share some of your thoughts, and better yet, demonstrate them for the people in your life. Our pursuit is to get a little bit better every day. Progress equals small victories stacked on top of each other, building like compound interest. Keep stacking these positive habits. Habits like getting up early, working your butt off, learning something new, being positive, and surrounding yourself with phenomenal people. Please share your comments at the links in the show notes and DM us at Teach Me to Fish podcast on Instagram or Facebook. Looking forward to our next conversation.
Times don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world, but keep the sky on your mind.